The revolution has begun, a silent revolution by the Democrat Party and Joe Biden to take over this country. Tomorrow is Constitution Day. And folks, if you haven't read it, you need to read Article 4, Section 4 very quickly. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union and shall protect each of them against invasion and domestic violence and guarantee a Republican form of government. We need every state, every red state, because the blue ones won't do it, to send and invoke Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution to tell the president that we are being invaded. Now, invasion, properly defined by most, says it's an unauthorized, uninvited, unwelcomed incursion in your territory or property. This is not authorized by the state of Texas. It's not welcomed by the state of Texas or any other Republican state that I know, and they're not invited.
Dan Patrick said, anything that is unauthorized and uninvited is an invasion. Did Christopher Columbus get an invite? I don't remember that.
As someone who did come to the United States as a refugee, you experienced quite a bit, especially in regard to the vetting process that's necessary to allow for refugees to come into the country. And look, as someone who came to the US as a refugee, what are your thoughts about how the United States is responding to asylum seekers at the border today, even under the Biden administration?
Yeah, I mean, my story is, as you've just mentioned, is uniquely American, right? We are used to processing people. We are used to seeing immigrants and refugees not just at our border, but arriving at our shores as well. And it's been really saddening to see that we are not holding up our ideals of welcoming immigrants with open arms. The United States is supposed to be a beacon of hope, and the current brokenness of our immigration system really is putting a dim light on that, and it's important for the administration to really re-examine what they have to do in order for us to continue to be that country that is seen as a beacon of hope where people do run to and seek refuge.
I'm curious why you think this is happening under the Biden administration. I mean, the Trump administration was notoriously brutal when it came to the issue of immigration. And Joe Biden campaigned on decency, on really serving as the antithesis of the Trump administration. And the facts matter. I mean, when you see what happened to Nigerian asylum seekers at the border recently, it shows that, Biden tends to try to straddle, right, between appeasing the right wing and the fear mongering that they engage in, and also attempting to at least rhetorically appease progressives. What do you think is the calculation behind that?
I mean, I think it's just another reminder that things don't really change regardless of what administration we might be dealing with. And although this administration promised decency, the way that they are dealing with migrants at our border has been anything but decent. I think the reality is, obviously, the last 4 years has sort of dismantled many of the processes that we have in regards to welcoming people in our country, whether it is our refugee system or whether it is our system that allows for people to seek asylum. It seems as if we had forgotten that it is an international right for people to seek asylum. We still have a lot of the Trump era policies as part of the policies of this administration. They actually, instead of overturning it, are defending it in court, which is just astonishing and shameful. We obviously know what's happening in regards to children as well, as they're being kept in conditions that are also not decent. We have to continue to pressure this administration. We have to continue to speak up for the humanity and dignity of everyone, regardless of how they arrive at our borders. And we have to make sure that people realize that our immigration policy has often had cruelty at its heart, and in many ways, as we have exported this idea of being a beacon of hope, in many ways we can be cruel, and it is. It's necessary in many ways to continue to advocate for policies that put us in line with our ideals, because as a nation, I think we are a nation of compassion. We are people who care for one another, and we have to fight the urge to politicize everything and to not see human suffering as something that we shouldn't allow as a nation.
Right. I mean, the fact that some portion of the country tends to see refugees and asylum seekers as a threat, even given the fact that much of the US foreign policy that takes place tends to lead to destabilizing regions of the world, tends to lead to these mass migrations of refugees seeking safety, seeking a future for themselves. And just real quickly, you do talk quite a bit about what the vetting process was like for you personally. It wasn't a quick vetting process, it took several years. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, refugees are the most vetted immigrants, around the world, and especially in the United States. Vetting process for refugees takes, on average, 18 months. It's DNA tests, it's biometrics, it's bone density tests.
Wow.
It is just literally everything that you can kind of imagine. It's like massive vaccination process that you have to go through to get vaccinated for everything. It's urine test after urine test. I mean, it is truly one of the most invasive processes any human can go through, and it's lost in the political discourse because a lot of people don't understand just how rigorous it is. People will point to a child who entered this country, when they were 1 or 2, who eventually as an adult commits a crime, and they forget that they were essentially raised by our society, and there was no vetting that could have been done to stop a 2-year-old from entering this country and eventually becoming a criminal. But that's the example that they will use. They will say, look at this immigrant, this refugee that came to the country and has done this. We have to have better processes, and there's no process that can predict what a 2-year-old will grow up to be or a 5-year-old will grow up to be. And instead of taking account of them being actually our neighbor and our society, raising them and having a hand in who they ended up being, we blame the process that brought them here, the process that provided safety, and it is, a process again that is in line with international decency.